Well, good evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are. This is Les Arodi, and I am half of the SEO Brain Trust, or maybe only, 40%, something like that. With me is the remainder of the 100% of the SEO Brain Trust, and that is Dan Thies. Let's make sure the technology actually allows Dan to participate. Dan, are you there?
Hello, Leslie. How are you doing this evening?
I am too fantastic for mere words, as of course I'm sure you are as well. And so we are, I haven't even looked at the number of slides our esteemed VP of Awesomeness has culled from the Link Liberation 3 launch page, but I know that there are dozens and dozens and maybe even hundreds of markets and questions that people have asked us to speak about. So I guess if you're ready, Dan, I guess we probably ought to dive into this so we can get it done sometime before tomorrow.
Let us dive in.
All right, here we go.
Real quick, let's just set up what we're doing here. So we asked folks to let us know what market they're in, what they do or sell online, so that we could help them figure out what kind of topics they could talk about in terms of the audience building and in the next video, abstracting in those processes. So we're just going to go through a whole bunch of different markets that folks brought up. A lot of them we've already answered in the comments, and we will go through these as quick as we can. Warning, these are not necessarily the best topic that you could possibly use. This is an example of a topic that will work in your market, but if you haven't actually gone through the entire training and done all the analysis and all the thinking about it, your guess is probably going to be as good as ours once you hear what our guess is. But the point here is to let you know that there is a topic and that this will work in your market, and you'll probably have a better idea once you hear our idea. So Leslie, let's get going.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So intercom systems. Apparently Tim has intercom systems, and Dan, this is one you've already answered for Tim to some extent. I think a great answer, right? Intercoms has to do with home improvement and other kinds of home electronics and smart homes and stuff like that. Do you have something to add to this particular answer?
Oh, there's lots of groups you could talk to. You could talk to gadget freaks. You could talk to business people, but you're trying to target business people that are, I would assume, in an office or, I don't know, a garage, or I don't even know where people use intercom systems. I haven't seen one in years. But certainly the home segment is one that you can target. There are a lot of different topics you can target around with homeowners, and home improvement and that kind of stuff is something that's easy to find conversations, and it's sort of easy to become a voice that gets heard.
Yeah, in fact, I actually have an intercom in my home, although it's one of those older style ones because of when my house was built. But some of the new stuff is really, really cool with integrated telephone, wireless phones, and stuff like that. So there's a lot in that segment. And the people who are interested in the higher end stuff, it's actually not a bad demographic, and you might find that they're interested in some other really cool stuff in the home as well. Okay. Let's move on to lawyers. And we actually have a lot of, well, not a lot, but I probably have close to half a dozen people in our membership that are either lawyers themselves marketing their own materials, or they're actually doing SEO or other marketing consulting for lawyers. This question is specifically about personal injury lawyers. And I think that we've both actually answered some questions for some of the folks on the blog about this, correct?
I believe so. I mean, I kind of want to hear, because you actually work directly with a bunch of these lawyer types, and I try to avoid them.
Well, I try to avoid actually being their clients. But, well, that's another story. Sorry, we didn't talk about that. Yeah, so personal injury, there's a bunch of things you can do around law in particular, because there's so much information just around law. And so this is almost what we've described in the most recent video in this series, as a tier 1 market, where you almost don't even have to do a bridge into something larger. And so a couple different things. If you're a local attorney, you can actually do things which are an intersection of your local market and your field of practice, your field of law that you're practicing in. So you could do abstracting about what's going on within a particular practice of law within your community, or more likely within your state. So it's almost, for those of you who are lawyers, it's almost like the court reporter services and those things. But you're not doing quite as much in-depth analysis, not done for your peers. It's actually done more for the community. So just information about what's going on, what has happened, what's of interest for people who are interested in it. Now, bear in mind, there's two different things we're trying to do with this kind of material. So the first thing is we'd actually like to get in front of people who would have an interest. We're trying trying to build a brand so that when people are searching for a personal injury attorney, they happen to find you and recognize you an authority because you're doing lots and lots of content around it. Bearing in mind that not, people aren't going out there before having an injury, not going out there searching for a personal injury attorney and putting that on speed dial on their phone. That's not happening. What's really happening, this is what's called a transactional market, where kind of like a plumber, you don't really go looking for a plumber until you have your pipe stopped up. But as soon as you do, you're going to find that person who is out there the most, who's actually got the most presence and has the best stuff and is the easiest to find, and it's likely that the people aren't going to do a really deep dive to look further than that. So you want to have just lots and lots of material out there for people to consume at that point in time when suddenly they actually need what you have. And so the better you can kind of build content around the things which are going to get in people's way, if you will, right? The content that's going to get in their way when they're looking for you. That's how you make that work. So I don't know that you even need to bridge very far out of this. Some people have gone to just doing community service type stuff, but I think you build actually a better brand by keeping your conversation about law within your community or within a geographic area. Do you want to add anything to that, Dan, or do you wish to go on to the next? Oh, there's more to this. This is part one. Yeah, because now there's more. And this is interesting enough. Corey, I happen to recognize Corey B., is in fact one of our members and has been since the Link Liberation 2 launch 18 months ago. He does direct work with lawyers. He's one of the folks that we've talked with a lot. David C. in this actually is himself a New York divorce attorney. And in fact, I was speaking with him earlier on the phone. And these individuals are, in fact, doing directly what we teach. We talk to them on a continuing basis. So I guess these must be our plants. Who put these in here?
Yeah, people like this. So let's see, we got Julia probably working with folks with insurance claims and property law. I'm not sure what property law means or exactly how insurance claims are related here, but I do like does it have to be Twitter? Kind of like Indiana Jones snakes. Actually, Julie, it doesn't have to be Twitter. It's the one that we taught because it's the easiest one to teach and the safest thing to use. There's just not quite as many wrinkles with Twitter, and there are a lot fewer gotchas that can catch you up. If you're talking about property law in terms of stuff that like rich landowners and property owners would care about, or what you're talking about,
I bet it's liability. Have you given it to the insurance claims? I bet it's probably property liability. That's what I'm going to take a guess, right?
It's a guess.
Yeah. But go ahead, Dan. I think you were answering that. I just wanted to clarify what I thought she was talking about.
I was hoping she was talking about something else, so I could tell her to put just pictures of people's beautiful homes on Pinterest and build a following there.
Oh.
Although you really want a Twitter following too.
Well, I guess that's true. That's a good point. Although, I mean, I guess that is a bridge she could use, right? Going from, from property. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Property law, like title type stuff, as opposed to liability type stuff. Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, I was hoping like Rich, the people in the McMansions and whatnot would be part of some segment of her audience, and if so, then the McMansion people like to look at the pictures of other McMansions so they can see what else they want to stick in their McMansion.
And that may actually be, even if it is property liability issues, that may actually be the best market anyway, because most folks, who of us knows actually what they're...
It's sort of a demographic bridge.
Yeah,
but
it is.
You'd like to find something that you could actually plausibly talk about on the main website in a blog. And so that's the kind of topic you'd be looking for, is something that is of interest to at least some segment of an audience, that you could have a helpful team member who's interested in that and talking about it. And really the kind of the legal news, the community news angle, whether it's local, statewide, nationwide, there was always stuff going on to talk about. There are always court decisions being decided that are worth talking about. And again, you don't have to be. It's not like you're trying to compete with, Quicken for home accounting software, or trying to compete with the Home Depot for for whatever the heck they try to target as keywords. My mind is blank right now.
Yeah,
But
I think
it's not. You're not talking about a billion links here. You're talking about depending on the scope of the business, perhaps a very small amount of audience building, and really just the acceleration and the obvious quality boost that they give you, even when you do something as simple as abstracting, as we'll be talking about in the third video. The boost that you can get from that can be pretty tremendous. And so this is one of those cases where, at least right now, if you're talking about competing locally, you probably don't have to go nearly as far as you would for some of these more competitive national markets.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Royalty-free music. Now, this one's kind of interesting.
It's even more interesting because that's your good friend Craig Griffiths.
Oh, is that right? Oh, you know what? I do remember that because I saw the comment with the picture. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and this is one where he's targeting the video editors and people that are doing that kind of stuff. I would just try to build an audience around the video editing tips and tricks and stuff like that, and target the home people. They're not necessarily going to buy music from you every day, but they're easy to reach. They push buttons like crazy, and if you give them really good stuff, they're going to be happy with learning how to, split a video clip in half in Final Cut, which is much easier content to create than, how to win an Emmy or whatever they give away for video editing stuff that people do.
Yeah, and this is another area where, this is, royalty-free music is right next door to a really, really huge market of music. And so literally just reporting on what's going on in the music scene is something you can do. Obviously you don't have to go very deep into that market before you're talking about such a huge audience you can build there that it ceases to be no longer very well targeted in terms of the people who are interested in royalty-free. So by staying closer, as you were just saying, Dan, and in terms of just the folks that want to do editing and tricks for doing editing and cutting things together or creating your own or, et cetera, how to select royalty-free music, stuff that's very on topic, that's kind of a tier 1 approach. Going a tier 2 approach, if you even needed to at all, you're right next door to music, and there are lots of ways to sub-segment that or nicheify that in order to get something that's really, really huge in terms of content well.
All right. Okay, let's move on because Craig probably still has our phone numbers, so if he wants more, he'll just call near you.
Probably true. Yeah. So here's some of the little bit interesting. Chandeliers. Wow. Okay. Chandeliers. All right. So these are kind of related. So modern furniture, home furnishings, chandeliers. And these are somewhat related in terms of where we'd go with all of these, right?
Yeah, and I actually have a horse in that race right now as a private client. So I'm going to speak very generally, but you can speak more specifically. But you're right. You're targeting homeowners here, right, and the more affluent homeowners. So this is one where you can actually, if you're finding images and stuff like that, you can actually make the Pinterest play work better, and those people sort of find you on Pinterest. It's cool that way, and but there are also, again, lots of topics around the home improvement, gardening, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's niches within each one of these that have really strong followings, and may not be huge amounts of content on each individual one, but when you put them together, it's huge. Now, obviously, modern furniture is going to be different than antique furniture, and et cetera. So if you have a specifically, or if you market specifically as modern furniture, then you may not be able to dip into antique in order to use that. But you can go up the other direction into all furniture, or how to select furniture, how to lay out furniture, almost like a feng shui, kind of a bent on things, home design and furnishings in general. Those are all very, very large areas. I think one of the rules of thumb, I would say, is if there is a magazine, a nationally syndicated magazine in the United States, a national distributed magazine in the United States that has your key phrase as its title, like home furnishings, all right, then it's a huge market. By and of itself, it's a huge market. We more or less define that as a tier 1 market where you didn't have to bridge out of it. You could just literally talk forever directly about your core offering, and you'd never run out of content. Chandeliers, you may have to actually bridge a little bit. I don't think there's a National Chandeliers magazine. Well, there probably is. I wouldn't know. But certainly that's within that category of home furnishing, so you don't have to go very far to have something to talk about that also includes chandeliers as a subset.
Yeah, they're probably less interested in home improvement and more interested in decorating. If you're buying chandeliers, you're probably not fixing your own plumbing, for example. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, all right, and these 3 of them from Rick, so this is a trifecta, I guess, and quite a lot of different ones here. So plush toys, print and online magazines, and wood stove accessories. Okay, that's quite a group.
Yeah, and with plush toys, I would assume we're selling them to kids, and so it's probably as easy as just parenting topics, which are pretty easy to tap into. With print and online magazines, I assume they're about something that people are interested in, so that's probably your topic right there, is just whatever. I mean, that's something where you can pretty much just leverage off the content that's there and build an audience. And that's more a matter of just getting sort of the social machine set up and getting the virtuous circles. We'll talk about that in the third video. Sorry, but getting that stuff going. And with wood stuff accessories, you have a little bit of a different slant on probably the home improvement stuff. You're maybe more after the kind of country living kind of stuff. Maybe you'll even talk about horses. There's lots of horse people in the world, aren't there, Leslie?
Yeah, there are quite a few of them, and I mean the other thing is this seems like homesteading, probably green living. There's some really. I used to actually take some of these magazines back when I lived in the Northwest, but there are lots of magazines for the people who are like living off the land or like even off grid, but more of a country kind of slant. And so there's kind of a deep area of content around that, and wood stove accessories is only a little piece of that. Then you've got the other kind of almost the other end of the spectrum where we're talking more like, the guy, maybe his wife too, they go to their hunting lodge, several times a year, and so it's more like a nostalgic, romantic thing. Or
maybe they're actually hunting. There is one little thing I want to mention. This is a good time to work in the TV show trick, which is going to apply in a lot of topics in a lot of markets, which is whether it's This Old House or, I'm sure there's television shows on the channels I don't ever get to because I pretty much just watch HBO once a week and then leave the TV off. But if there are television shows that kind of target audience segments, you can find people talking about those shows pretty much every week while the new episode is being broadcast, and actually doing show summaries and things like that, and embedding the YouTube that inevitably gets posted, and tweeting, hey, we got the new episode up here that actually gives you sort of some traffic bait and link bait that gets people to your site. Is it going to convert at some massive rate? No, but we're not doing this activity to sell stuff to people. We're doing, most of the time, we're doing this activity to build an audience and help us get links and make our link bait and all that other stuff work better.
Yeah. In fact, the TV trick is the new media equivalent of the national magazine trick, right? And so, let's see, one-time service. This is interesting. I haven't actually read this one. Yes, Mike?
Yeah, you read this because you commented on it, but I want to just shut you up for a minute.
Okay, go for it.
He's doing credit card processing and merchant accounts, so anything that is of interest to business owners is going to be a worthwhile topic. If you can sort of focus around profit and margins and things like that, which is what gets people thinking about, I wonder why my merchant account costs so much. Then that way when you've got people on a piece of content reading about how to shave money on their business electric bill, or how to get squeeze a little bit more margin out of your products and things like that. And you've got that, you can kind of have that persistent ad there that says, "Are you paying too much for your credit card processing? Click here to find out." And he's going to get you some clicks on that. So that's really it's a second tier market that's awfully close to first tier. It's just you're going to have to expect that you're mostly doing it for the SEO benefits as opposed to actually trying to push merchant accounts on the Twitters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so underwater LED lights. Let's see. So it depends on who is that for. Is that actually for yachts, or is it fixed in boaters, commercial?
He's identified
all of them, yeah.
Multiple topics that he can go after, and I would say you start with one and then expand to others. Now, we do have a case study that's coming up in the third video with a guy named Michael who went nuts and decided to basically open up 9 channels and 9 different I don't think it's actually 9 separate personas, but it's more than one. But he's actually got 9 different sites where he's publishing content. But he's got some really strong advantages in terms of efficiency and just brain smarts kind of stuff, and he implements fast. So it was very easy for him to actually build up 9 sites and get them all rolling. And the good thing about that was he actually figured out that one of them is far and away, sort of the better topic in terms of bringing in traffic, and that site is actually, profitable as a standalone entity almost. And the money that he makes from referral traffic actually puts it over the top into being profitable. And then the other sites are very low cost in terms of content. But I would recommend even what we recommended to him, which is start with one and build up the audience on that, and then move to the next one, because it was a slow build for him to get to where he needed to go. And if he'd have been a little bit more focused in picking the topics, and the one that ended up being the best one is the one that was more of a first-tier market, that is people looking at the content have a reason to buy products from him to support what they're doing as they're looking at the content. So you could really pick any of these, but again, like I said in the comments, you should start and pick one. And as far as how this gets links back to your website, it's something that when you have an audience, you can do link bait, and that link bait will get more links and things like that. And so your link bait topics are going to be similar to what you're talking about, in the social universe. But it's really the ability to point a bunch of eyeballs, and the fact that so many people now out there in the world can end up giving you a link of some kind just by pushing a button. Every month the number of people doing Tumblr goes up, and those are all links, and it builds, and you do start to catch the attention of other people that are blogging on a topic too, and there are ways to start building relationships with those people directly. And we talk about all that stuff in the course. It's just if we've got 20 minutes to try and teach something in one of these free trainings, we can't go into that super in-depth stuff, because it just takes too long. It's so dependent on doing an analysis of your market.
Yeah, but this one, I don't think that Tony has to bridge very far here, right? I mean, this is almost a tier 1, because in terms of boaters, you can just talk about boaters. I mean, boaters. I mean, those people are rabid about that stuff. I mean, I'd love to be if I had the time. Commercial and residential property owners, the same way. I mean, if anybody that has water on their property, it's such a big issue for them in terms of what the property is like and the time it takes, that's obviously something they're highly interested in. So you don't really have to go very far to find a rabid and emotionally connected audience.
Yeah, there might even be a universe of koi pond people out there that I just don't know about. I'm glad they eat some of the mosquitoes, but I really don't want a pond on my property.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so next one, kids' parties. And this is our friend Ms. Lyons, as I bet you. Yeah, I'm sure it is, yeah. Birthday parties, games, favorites, themes, etc. Sport, kids' party. And I think that I think this is all pretty much directed at, this is like packaged games and other things like that. It's how to do parties and stuff. So I think that her clients or her customers are.
Yeah, and what she's doing here is, it's what a lot of people do when they start blogging and stuff like that for the businesses. They're talking about their products, but you need to think about who's buying the products and talk about things that they're interested in, and things that they're interested in all the time, not things that they're They're going to be interested in a Spider-Man birthday party kit when their kid's birthday's coming up, and there was just a Spider-Man movie out. The rest of the time, it's the parenting stuff and educational stuff, how to get your kids outside to play and get exercise. There's lots of things that you can talk about there, and that really applies to anybody that's selling stuff that parents buy for kids.
Yeah, right for the parents. Absolutely. Yeah. Original children's CD built for holidays, and this is really Tom is in the same market that Leslie is. exactly the same sort of bridge. I mean, this is focused on holiday parties as opposed to birthday parties, which I guess is like the kids' holiday. But again, I mean, it's all about parenting, right? For the people that are actually your demographic, and then they need parenting tips all the time. God knows.
And mothering tips, because you're really talking to the mothers here. Because I don't know, my dad would show up for a birthday party, but actually getting him to make sure everybody had the right number of noisemakers and stuff, that wasn't going to happen.
No.
Other dads may. But I doubt it.
Okay.
So let's get the next one. And really, I mean, these are I don't know what a certain age means when we're talking about birthday gifts for a certain age, but I think we're still kind of talking about that. And parenting tips and news stories is what Kevin's been using, and I think that's a really good one. You can kind of and one thing, let's talk about the other trick. So if you've actually got a store that's been operating for quite a while, and if you've been letting your customers or inviting your customers to follow you on Twitter for, I don't know, a coupon or whatever, or, by the way, you can just mail them out and say, hey, follow us on Twitter and get 5% off your next order, and you'll also sell some stuff and make a profit by sending that email. But when you've actually got people following you on Twitter, following your business on Twitter, especially if you've got customers, you can go through and look at what kind of stories they're sharing and retweeting and what they're talking about to help you find topics. And that's something we talk about in like Liberation is, okay, just let the market tell you what they want to talk about and figure out something that you can fit in.
Indeed. Okay, email secret. Oh, yes, and this is an interesting product. But
yeah. And this actually is a cool product that I might actually try out. But,
yeah, exactly, me too. I was
but what he's got here is basically he's got the rest of his life he's going to be sharing links and writing abstracts and creating his own original productivity porn. And that's not pictures of people multitasking naked, folks. It's
no.
Productivity porn is a term I think Merlin Mann came up with from 43 Folders of Inbox Zero fame. But when he realized that a lot of people were spending so much time consuming his stuff about how to be productive that they were probably spending more time, looking at pictures of productivity than actually being productive.
Yeah.
But there's just a huge audience for that stuff that you'll never run out of things to talk about. There will always be some new thing coming at it for Anders. I'm sorry, I don't know which. You want to be, your original content that you would come to later is going to be about email. And, since Merlin is no longer interested in being the guru of Inbox Zero, maybe you can be the guru of Inbox Zero or Inbox -1, or you can invent some other spin on it. But that's such an easy to build an audience in. The website, a little bit of prettying up, but it does very clearly communicate what the thing does.
Yeah, if you have any doubt that life hacking and work-life balance and stuff like that don't have a huge audience, 2 words for you: Tim Ferriss. Okay. So, how about from David, baby monitors?
Those are actually 2 names.
Yeah, there are. Exactly. Yeah, okay. Proper nouns. All right, so business process outsourcing, mostly accounting related, and baby monitors, 2 very similar markets, of course.
You're talking to parents in one case, obviously, and you're talking about, it's more about the stuff that's about newborns, because you don't need a baby monitor for your 15-year-old unless you're spying on them, and you really shouldn't do that. You should find other ways to work with your kids around their issues. And then the business process outsourcing, it's know more about your customers than I do, because I don't know anything about who's doing business with you. But you're probably talking about more of the higher end, larger organization, and probably the more towards CEO than guy sitting in his garage tinkering with his invention, hoping to strike it rich someday. Which means that it's more of the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review type of content than practical tips for a list of open source software tools that you can use to do your accounting with is not going to be probably of interest to people who are actually doing business process outsourcing.
not people who call it that, right? I mean, if hiring an accountant is how a small business person would talk about business process outsourcing for accounting. But if you're using the words BPO, right? That's you.
So yeah, and if that's where you're playing, if you're like account temps or something like that, then I would be doing content about for the small business owner. And then, lots of stuff that's of interest to small business owners more broadly. Obviously more specific topic than just small business, but having then a lot of how-to type of stuff. So that then you can have how-to stuff about bookkeeping, which is what creates the pain that makes us hire an accountant in the first place.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Employee testing. Testing. Who use it? No, I wouldn't imagine so. Target business owners, again. I mean, this is almost the same demographic that is being served, but probably maybe a little bit lower end, maybe not. I mean, people who actually test their employees before hiring them already put you a little bit bigger category than just the sole entrepreneur and most home-based business owners. So this is probably a place with company, a office and an HR manager, and so you are talking.
Yeah, you're probably not doing employee testing unless there are W-2s involved.
Well, that's of course, you're right. Absolutely, that's going to be the case. So, what topic bridge do you come up with here, or how do you actually build that audience to attract those people? It's probably people like HR managers and hiring managers. So, what topics they're interested in when they go to looking for, hiring concerns, finding the best employees, where to find employees, those kinds of things. There's obviously a lot of material you can write around that's going to show up. And oh, by the way, as a side note, there's a testing aspect. So just getting away from testing and going after hiring and HR things as a general topic is going to be very
10 great interview questions to find the best people, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. How to hire because there's tons and tons of best-selling books.
3 questions you must ask every salesperson, right? There's just that stuff writes itself, and I'll stand by my comments that I left on the site there. Let's go to the affiliate and content thing, and I kind of already answered that, right? If you're doing content, then my God, if you're not doing content on something that people are interested in, well, you're just an affiliate. You maybe find something. But the biggest thing, I think, is that a lot of people that we meet that are in kind of affiliate world or doing content sites are not thinking about content and quality the right way. If I go on the Warrior Forum, I hear people say, well, the content isn't that bad. It's pretty decent. That's not good enough. Find stuff that's great and write about it if you have to, but don't just put out junk. And if you can get a lot of leverage, as we're talking about just in these two kind of second and third videos here, out of other people's content that is great. But understand also that does set the bar for the kind of stuff you're going to create. But if you're getting so much of the message to the audience from other people's content, that means you don't have to create as much of your own original content. So take some of that. Making less, don't do $52 articles. Do 2 or 3 really good pieces that cost a little bit more money to create, and fill out the rest with abstracting and the other stuff that we teach.
All right. Local web design. I mean, I assume that means web design for local businesses. This is one of those cases where you don't have to go very far to find your market. It's business people who want to.
This is actually an interesting business. What they do is basically they get leads for web designers, and I'm not sure what they do after that, but they can kind of come up with, I think, a pretty good value proposition of sort of like what it really was LendingTree. I wasn't sure, but that the banks come to you, and I think you can come up with a similar proposition with web design that you can basically talk about all the small online business kind of stuff, like does your website suck? Are you making these mistakes with your e-commerce store? Things like that. Those are easy topics to talk about. There's a lot of people out there talking about them. I mean, a lot of our friends are on Twitter all day long worrying about that stuff and talking about that kind of stuff. And so the stuff that's really about, your content on your site can then be about how to find the best designer and the checklist of things to bring to a web designer and stuff like that. And everything else can really just be abstracting and sharing stories to build the audience that you need.
And there's so much content about this, you don't have to go very far. I mean, you just have to follow the standard blogs in online marketing and that sort of thing, and you'll have no shortage of content.
Yeah, and if you were just looking for links or referrals, you can also just, there's lots of designers talking about key designer stuff online, and that's what we sort of call a peer strategy or a peer bridge. We talk about topic bridges, kind of what we've been talking about. There's also a peer bridge where you sort of build an audience of your peers, and there are demographic bridges that we'll have an excuse to talk about later.
Indeed. And so this looks like variations on the same theme here. Pretty much anything that you have that's about marketing or sales for businesses, local or national, you have a huge well of information to draw on just by talking about what everybody else is already talking about. You don't have, this is like an easy one, right? This is a tier one. Almost anything in this is
yeah, well, these are all things where people can actually talk about basically what they do on their website, more or less. I mean, something that's really closely related, but they're sharing other topics in terms of building an audience with people that are members of sort of the larger target market. The one that stands out here, though, is Matt, and I believe they sell premium WordPress themes.
Yep.
That's one we're actually talking to the designers and the WordPress geeks. Those are the people that buy lots of WordPress themes. It's the dirty little secret of the web design business that most of the time when you hire a designer, they're buying a theme and then modifying it. And so content for those people about how to modify themes, and heck, it can even be about how to modify the themes that you have, and to a degree, and still be interesting to a substantial audience.
And if you want to play the B2B dimension there, if you find out your customers really are primarily designers, then you can do content for them around how to be a better designer, how to get more clients. So that'd be another angle if you find that there's a niche there.
Something everybody in that business wants to know.
Indeed. Okay, lead generation. Lead generation for what kind of company is not entirely clear. The second one is B2B lead generation, which is still not entirely clear. I would say you have to know what your market is.
Generating leads for, think about that market and that. The other question here from Manuel is about, he's in Italy, he's an Italian guy, and in Italy, Twitter is used much less than in America, and that's one that it's a little bit hard for us to address without having a much longer conversation. But one thing is, things don't have to come from Italy all the time. There are, but also the number of that are on Twitter, and I don't know if there are other social networks that are more popular there. I mean, if there isn't somebody in every country with more than 8 people in it trying to figure out how to launch their own local Twitter, I don't know what's wrong with that country. So I bet you that there might be 2 or 3 entrepreneurs in Italy. If not, you might want to shut down that business and just start up an Italian Twitterati, or no, wait.
No, that's kind of, something like that. We have to translate that to Italian. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the trick here is that, the lead generation is a monetization strategy as opposed to a particular market. And the way you have to approach this is like, what's your market, not how you're trying to monetize this. So
and depending on what kind of leads you're generating, it might be a first-tier market. I mean, if it's it's a big thing where it's any kind of leads or any kind of business, then you're back to all we got to do is talk about business. And if not, then that's still actually a valid bridge for anything related to any kind of business almost. But if you have something more specific, like if we're only generating leads for plumbers or whatever, then we're talking we're probably talking about a different set of topics that are of interest to that group. But I'd have to know more about what they're doing. Let's keep going.
Yep.
We don't want to be here all night.
Yep, consulting. What's consulting? Local business stuff, mold remedy. Oh, wow, mold remediation, flooring, orthodontics, etc. Lifestyle marketing. Wow, that's quite a lot. So, mold remediation.
Yeah, he's just working with a lot of different local businesses.
Yeah.
And so,
marketing, I guess, or not. I'm not sure.
And I think what Chris is actually interested in is what does he do for the clients? And a lot of the time that's really, really easy. Like I actually know a plumber that does sort of do-it-yourself plumbing stuff on site, and then does more of the kind of handyman home improvement kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't think it's Bob Vila, but whoever those people are that are the gurus of messing with your own stuff instead of hiring somebody,
Yeah.
Are great people to those kind of topics are great. And again, you've got a TV show play here, more likely than not, the fuck this house guys and that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's keep rolling here.
All right. Yes, mix. This is a mix. So cake tins, salsa dancing. Yeah, I remember this one. Commercial, really. Yeah, these are all a little bit different. So I mean, cake tins. I mean, it's a little bit strange. I'm not sure, who uses those and why. I mean, literally, we're talking about women baking cakes and putting them in tins. That's an interesting.
Yeah, what Far I was dealing with here is probably it's also a good Pinterest play. If you just watch the stream of stuff on Pinterest, it's just one picture of some weird thing where somebody took a star-shaped cake and made a stack of them and turned it into some kind of a planetarium thing with frosting or all the other weird stuff that people do with food. But also, there's people sharing recipes, and there are those. You can actually, and we've done it with somebody else, actually go and find a lot of people that are sharing a lot of recipes and sort of just become a recipe source that those people eventually all sort of learn to follow because they love to talk about baked goods for some reason. It's their thing.
In talking of salsa dancing, that's like a perfect market. I mean, if only every market should be this easy. I mean, it's so close to something that's highly social. It's you're talking about like dating, party arrangements, anything along there. That there's a huge amount of information. There's even the celebrity angle you can follow on in terms of dance.
Anybody that shares the touching, heartwarming, romantical stories about the man that does something unmanlike and actually doesn't make his wife angry today by having a webinar at night or whatever.
No one would do that.
People that don't act like us. But there are lots of stories about those, and you can literally become a source of those and find people following you and sharing your stuff. So you look for those kind of stories, you figure out who's tweeting them out, and you'll find a very high follow back rate relative to, say, marketers. And you can just become sort of the source of those stories, and it pretty much flows from there.
Right. Commercial real estate, office space, retail space. That's one of those where I assume that they're in a more or less a regional geographic area.
It's local. I'm actually working with them on it. We're doing a case study on design, but yeah, I mean that's one of those things where you're targeting business owners, and I think he's actually got, because of the community that he's in, a play to actually become sort of the source of where people are finding out what's going on at City Hall and in the council meetings around zoning and real estate and stuff like that. Because there's stuff going on all the time. There are at any given time 5 or 6 raging controversies about should this property be flattened zone? Should we allow them to actually put up a business on their commercial zone property and stuff like that? So it used to live close to there, Leslie. So anyway, we'll keep moving on now.
Yeah. Merchandise. That's an easy one too. Again, anything we're right next to music and entertainment. So you have a well of information and content. Who's using what devices, or the kind of merchandise that you're selling is probably something that somebody actually famous is already using.
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of band it is, right? If it's a marching band, that's a little bit different.
Good point. I didn't think of that.
Garage band. I mean, the garage bands, there's tons and tons of content stories you can share about how to play a guitar. There's stuff you can get into in terms of how to record. If you're talking about marching bands, then I don't know enough about who buys that stuff, but you're looking for stuff that's of interest to those people, and I don't even know who makes those decisions. But even with that, if it's about marching bands or the school band kind of stuff, again, it could be stuff where you're talking about kids, and sort of the core content on the site is about how great it is to get your kids started in music.
Yeah, true. Again, okay, dog business. Dog business. That sounds a little weird.
As neat, or
Yeah, I guess let's not go there.
let's move on, because that's one that you can talk directly about dog stuff, dog training. There's people out there that
People are crazy about their pets.
interested in that stuff, and so you sort of become a source of stuff for the dog owners, or if it's not about dog owners and maybe it's people that eat dogs, then it's recipes. Okay, moving on.
All right, moving on. B2B reports. Again, this is kind of like, we need to know what industry, I think, but with the SEO.
Pharmaceuticals, medical
devices. Okay, right. Huge wellspring of content there. Now, B2B, so it sounds like they are actually a vendor too.
This is one of those perfect demographic bridge kind of markets.
Mm-hmm. So there's your intro.
This is one where you've got 1 million conventions every year, bazillion salespeople out there, and so it's actually possible to do what we call a demographic bridge and sort of find that community of salespeople. They'll be tweeting out with hashtags about the conventions that they're going to. They're going to be posting pictures on Flickr with tags related to the event, and you can sort of become the one that sort of makes the community out of that. Of, here's where all the funny pictures are. Here's where we talk about who had the best trade show booth, or if you want to go sexist, who had the best booth babes. I wouldn't recommend doing that because is it like 2012 now, Leslie?
It's more or less. It's something like that.
Yeah, so it's not 1912, and they even let women vote these days. So let's.
Moving on.
But that's one. It's a long conversation in terms of there's a lot of analysis that goes into who we're going to target and how we're going to target. But it's actually something that you can do. But you can also sort of gather those people together around the fun stuff, but also be talking to them about the reports and things like that, and white papers and things that you have. So I think you've got sort of a first tier market too, once you've got that demographic bridge built and you're talking to the right people.
Indeed, and part of the issue there is a lot of people miss that. Maybe we're not actually trying to, with this content, we're not actually trying to engage the end customer in a lot of ways. Oftentimes we're just trying to build an audience that creates a brand and has that SEO spin-off. We can do both depending upon the kind of market it is and the exact bridge we use.
Yeah, the fact is, if your link building merely breaks even, you're miles ahead of almost everyone else in the world. And even where we have people that are way off on a topic bridge, we see them being able to pay for the content with AdSense and affiliate stuff. And even if they don't make one single sale themselves out of it, which that also hardly ever happens. But you also find out, as I think Phil talked about it in one of our case studies, where he's in some of the businesses he's in, he has sort of a farther bridge in terms of the topic, but people still recommend his product to their friends, and so it's something where he knows it's driving sales, but they're not necessarily coming in directly from a click off of Twitter.
Right.
Okay, so things nobody wants to talk
about. But we know who doesn't want to talk about them, and that's the key.
So Eric is dealing with payday loans and debt reduction, and I've actually got some friends that have made a career out of doing SEO for these fine people, and will stand up and defend the payday loan as not being loan sharking at all, but a valuable bridge for. Anyway, it's fairly easy to attack in terms of building an audience. Is the same kind of people that the coupon sites are talking to. So it's literally like sharing links to coupons and sales and things like that. And you can have a nationwide thing in particular, or gosh, you can get a $10 Amazon gift card by doing this or that. Those are the kind of people you want to be talking to, and it's find the people that are sharing that stuff with their friends. You follow them, they see that you're also sharing a bunch of that stuff all the time, and a lot of them will end up following you back and then sharing what you share. And so it's pretty easy to find the content because there's a billion sites trying to do this kind of content. But that's one that's pretty easy to do, and I've actually seen work successfully in that market that I don't want anything to do with anymore. So anyway,
all right.
What's going on?
Another mix. Forex, commodity trading, SAT. Wow, this is quite a mix. Forex and commodity seems really straightforward to me. It's by and of itself, maybe it's slightly narrow, but I mean, it's in this bigger community or bigger topic of investments and making money and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's people talking about that directly to each
other. Sure,
there
are. Yeah, of course.
There are gurus of that and plenty of publications and stuff like that, and television shows about that stuff, and just find out who's talking about those, find out who's tweeting those, and just share good content, and that's a pretty easy one to build an audience in.
Yeah. SAT test preparation. Again, we're talking to people, kids at a certain age and their parents who are trying to ace that SAT. What else are they talking about? What else is going on with them? How do you talk to those people who are actually interested in that stuff?
You're talking about parents of teens, so find the kind of content that's out there for parents for teens, figure out who's spreading that stuff around, and start spreading the same kind of stuff around, and you win.
Yep.
And by the way, what I just said is the formula for almost every market that you'd be in when we're just doing the more entertaining version of actually guessing what that stuff might be.
There we go.
So photo printers, digital photo people are all over there talking about digital photography. Easy.
Right. Yeah, that one's pretty. And there are certain demographics. In fact, we have a longtime customer named Alicia, who is actually like in the frames business, and she has very similar kind of issues here about which demographics she's talking to, about whether she's talking about the soccer mom that's preserving photos, or where she's talking about grandma who's collecting photos and putting them on the wall. Well, this is like for photo printers. We may be actually talking about the person at home that wants to print out photos. We may be talking to a semi-pro who's doing it. So you can actually find different sub-niches or sub-markets of your actual customers who are maybe interested in different sorts of topic streams.
Yeah, and it's all about identifying those segments. And, and also, I mean, if you sell photo printers, it's also possible to look at, who among that giant segment of Apple or Windows people occasionally talks about photo printers, and those are the people that you're talking to about all the other stuff that they're talking about. It's whatever other junk they're talking about. So you can, again, find the topics from the market.
Franchise
development, I don't understand exactly what it is, but we're probably talking about business kind of stuff, talking to business people.
Well, yeah, it's people actually who are, and this is probably a really good segment in terms of the socioeconomics, the people who are interested, and I'm not sure which side of this they're on, the business who wants to develop a franchise or the person who wants to purchase a franchise, get into a franchise themselves. If it's the latter case, that's an incredibly good demographic to go after, and those are the same people who are probably also interested in investment advice and other things like our Forex person above. And so that kind of thing about why a franchise opposed to some other business.
And retirement planning too. I mean, you get to that certain age, which I think I just reached yesterday. Where you realize that that you're not going to do this forever, which hopefully for me is like another year tops before I become a professional bass fisherman. But they are, they're talking about investment, they're talking about retirement advice, and so you can find people along those lines, because one of the things that a lot of people often wisely decide to do is to, my job is great, but I need to start a business so that I actually have something that I can sell when I retire, as opposed to having a job where they kick me out when I retire. And, sporting goods.
And that would depend upon who your demographic is and whether this is a retail location or what. But I mean, sporting is huge, obviously.
Yeah,
and if it's not big enough, you can go to pro sports.
Yeah.
You'll
find in a lot of sporting goods segments. For example, golf. There are people talking about golf on the internet all day long, and so you might want to just, mint yourself a golf guy and talk about golf if you sell golf stuff. Even if golf stuff isn't your best category, it's a great way to build an audience and things like that. But you can also, there's baseball that's huge all over the country, pretty much here in the United States anyway. Mm-hmm. And there's even football, which is pretty big in this here Texas down here. And so there's lots of things you can talk about. But think about the customers and what they're doing, and right, if it's not the high community that you probably want to tap into, even if you sell the clubs that they beat themselves with or whatever. I don't even know what highlight is. They hit themselves on the head with clubs, right, or each other, I guess.
And that in lacrosse like that too, right?
I mean, throw a ball around and then bang each other on the head with a club.
Yeah.
So anyway, fastest sport in the world, I hear.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
health, these are all the same thing almost.
Oh, the next slide. Are we on the next slide? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Healthy habits. Now, that depends on who you're talking to. I mean, so yeah, if you're talking to boomers, all right, and about healthy habits, there may be a little bit different than what you want to go with. But there's huge amount of information. I mean, when you look at something like this in that general category of healthy habits, many of the current best-selling books from celebrity authors are in that category. So there's more content you could possibly ever use, and at some point what happens is in developing your voice in that market, you end up being a trusted selector of what somebody wants to listen to. And there is no right answer to that.
Is if people are interested in something and they find that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is of interest to them and useful, that's all you need here. And the rest can follow from that. Mike is talking about personal development. I don't know if we had anything more specific, but it's the same kind of thing. As I figure out what are these people talking about, and you can just go from who are the gurus that they're listening to, and then just go figure out who's tweeting their stuff, and then find stuff that's from people aside from just the gurus everybody's heard about, and then you've also got sort of that. Kind of the mix of stuff everybody's heard about, and then oh gosh, you're also adding unique value because there's stuff that I wouldn't have heard about unless I was listening to you, and that's when you get to that mix, you are gold in social.
And literally, within personal development, you could do nothing more in content other than just abstract or summarize what people thought of various different personal development books, and you would never run out. I think I'm pretty sure they're being published on an ongoing rate faster than you could review them.
Yeah, and so Kirsten was and she's pretty passionate about this, about carbohydrate addiction and how people just eat wrong. And as I've learned myself by losing like 25 pounds by not being, I'm still addicted. I'm an addict. I want white bread right now. I want a whole entire loaf of French bread, Kirsten. Kirsten. But that's one where you can talk about broader topics, and obviously you're not going to want to link to anything that isn't along the lines of what you believe in. But there are already people out there that people are paying attention to, and that have a following in the world that are not saying stuff that you would disagree with. And so a mix of that and your own content, you're already creating it. I think that's a first-tier market and very easy to address. Raw aloe vera gel. What do you do with that? Drink it? Smoke it?
No, actually, it's fantastic. In fact, until moving to Georgia, I actually had an aloe vera cactus in my home all the time because it's great for burns and other kind of exterior use. People are actually using it.
Okay, so you're smoking something else and burning yourself.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, when you drop a cigarette on your leg, you need to fix it. But no, in this, I mean, there's this a huge category of people interested in healthier remedies, things that don't aren't a prescription and stuff like that. So there's a big community there of people you would approach. People who shop at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, for example.
And this one is one, I think, where kind of some of the green living topics might be something good to bring into the mix. This and the first one, the healthy habits, environment like that. You can mix in some of that stuff too. Let's keep going here.
Yep. Jewelry. That's the other end of the spectrum here. So fine jewelry, religious jewelry. Jewelry's good. And we've
this is another one that when God made Pinterest. And I'm sorry, whatever God you believe in made Pinterest. Or if you don't believe that your God makes anything, then the guys that started Pinterest, I don't know their names. It was made for this. But this is one where you can even work back from Pinterest to people on Twitter, like the people that are sharing all the jewelry pictures on Pinterest, work back to them on Twitter and work out from that to a larger audience. Because when people are interested in something, if you find them and you get them talking, then you get their friends too, and so on and so on. And pretty soon everybody's using the same kind of shampoo.
And bear in mind, the jewelry is one of those cases where we go what we call a situational bridge, where it's like, when is jewelry used? Well, it's used as part of romancing, for example. So clearly, just bridging into romance, you're going to find a ready.
Some of it. So it depends on what kind of stuff they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also, I mean, if you're actually got people that are making the jewelry, get that stuff on that Etsy. It's insane. Okay.
All right, insane then. Good. Insane is good though. Yeah. Funky art. All right. Sells funky art.
Yeah, and I don't know if their friend actually makes the funky art. If they do, they might want to try a Kickstarter and threaten to make some more funky art if people give them a bunch of money. But this is something where, again, made for Pinterest, right? Just look for pictures on Pinterest that match what you got. Follow them people and start sharing, repinning their stuff. And I mean, I've been doing nothing but repinning on Pinterest. I haven't actually figured out how to even pin something. And I've already got all these friends and people that are seeing the stuff that I pin and repinning it and talking about it. It's weird because I think there's a whole community of people that do nothing but Pinterest all day long and probably all night. But that's one that is sort of made for that. And again, you can kind of work back from if you found something that like a picture, a video, something that is of interest to people that would be interested in this. Find out who's sharing that stuff on Twitter. And again, if you can be the one that's just constantly sharing the stuff about whatever funky art is, and you sort of you find the people because they're sharing the same kind of stuff.
Right, and I guess it'd also be if your funky art has a particular theme to it. So if it's a kind of Southwest funky art, or hippie funky art, or maybe it's kind of more high end McMansion funky art, that like you may find a demographic there. Yeah, you might find a demographic there to use. Hair.
Okay.
Everyone has hair. Okay.
And I did make a comment on that. It's more about, we had somebody who's a mobile hairdresser that's having a hard time closing the deal, and my comments there were more about we're doing something wrong in terms of how we sell that, because that costs extra. When we have the people come to our house to groom the dog, that costs extra, not less. But with hair extensions and with hairdressers, I got significant horses in races there, and so if you want to comment on that, I'd be more comfortable.
Yeah, and that, the hair extension is one of those things that's in a particular demographic that uses it. I mean, it's one of those things I didn't even know what it was until maybe a year ago.
Well, and people are talking about braiding and hairstyling on the internet all the time.
Yes, they are. And one of the easiest places to go after very viral content is that every celebrity, whenever they appear in public, they either had their hair done, which you can comment about, or they didn't, which is probably even more viral. And about how they showed up looking like that. Are you kidding?
But this is something you can. I'm going to go ahead and just talk about it. This is something you can do as a first-year market. There's people out there. There are hundreds of websites that people that have at least some audience, where people are learning how to how to do this hairstyle or that hairstyle. A lot of them involve hair extensions. There's a little bit of some demographic differences that you find as many white girls in Northern California getting hair extension as you might find people getting hair extensions in Alabama. But it is something where again, you can find the content out there that already has an audience, and you can work back to sharing the content, and those are the people. And so, starting from the topic of just look for people that are information that would directly involve doing hair and doing hairstyling, and you're gold on that one.
Yeah. In fact, what I was going to say is that one of my daughter's friends is a hairstystylist, and that was her most asked question was, how do I make, can you make my hair look like fill in the blank celebrity?
And that's the to me the premium and link bait content. that you like have directly on your site if you can, right? Because that's just and if you can find that kind of stuff and abstract it, that builds you a more loyal audience on your site. I mean, Lifehacker, for example, they create a little bit of content, but not very much. Almost all of it is what I call, in Linklet 3, the commentary type posts, and we'll get into all this stuff in the next video. But by the time anybody's watching the replay of this, it's on the video right above this.
Indeed it is. Yes, it will be.
But yeah, that's the stuff that I would want to plant on my site as link bait, right? Is okay, get somebody that can tell you how to do that style. That's the link bait.
Indeed.
Just like Susie, whoever again. Yeah, whoever
okay.
the celebrity are.
Moving on, because you apparently don't actually get out enough to know who to look at. Okay, so manufacturing.
They're on television, I think.
I think they are. Yeah. So manufacturer parts. Now, finally, we're getting to really, like kind of a real hard one, right? So, and this one, actually, this is a friend of one of our members, does what's called wire EDM, and most people don't even know what that means. But it's a type of machining, and it's kind of, it's a highly precise form of machining, and so you'd have to actually be really deep into this market to even understand what the heck it's about. And sure enough, this is one of those that we would call a Tier 3 market, right? And so who are you going to talk to? Or actually, what kind of messages are you going to talk about? Where are you going to get your material to talk about this? Certainly in manufacturing-related stuff, I mean, one of the first places you can go is you can just go to the industries that you serve. And so I forget now, and Walt has told us this. Do you remember primarily what industries this buddy of, well, it's actually his buddy's client, so it's like 3 times removed. But I can't remember what their primary markets are for their machining. Because it's highly precise machining. Not everybody needs this stuff. And I can't remember what their markets are. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't remember either exactly what the industries they serve. But talking about those industries and what's going on with those industries, or doing the demographic bridge, the peer bridge that Dan, you were talking about, where you're actually talking to salespeople and stuff like that, are places you can go here to build lots of content that's going to build this person's brand.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if they even know how to start Twitter, which maybe not all manufacturing people do, and I guess I shouldn't have just offended every manufacturing person in the audience, but we're not talking about you. We're talking about those other people.
Those other people, yeah.
Ignorant ones.
Yeah.
Also that peer bridge of it might be a small group. There might be 50 people, in the entire world that actually talk about wire EDM to each other, but you want to be friends with all of them, and it's not that hard.
No, it's not.
Unless you've actually literally vomited on all of them at a trade show or something, in which case an apology would give a start. Garden machinery, what is that?
Well, it depends on who we're talking to. Are we talking about a consumer? I mean, I guess a garden as opposed to farming, right? And so it seems like that's an enormous market. Good God. I think the test we could use is like the number of titles at Amazon, right? The number of titles.
Yeah, there's a green angle to this. There's self-reliant. There's all kinds of people out there that are, there's a whole movement and websites and magazines and stuff about, making your own freaking food and stuff like that. So I don't know which ones are bigger and which ones are easier to find on Twitter. And the easiest way to do is work back from the content sources to figure out who's sharing stories and figure out which one actually is the bigger segment, and at least start there.
Yep. Local services, so landscape design, kitchen renovation.
But the garden machinery, by the way, actually fits in with some kind of home garden TV show that you can tap into. You might even be able to go broader. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So local services, landscape design, custom joinery, yada yada, kitchen renovations. Yeah, those are. These are a little different than plumbing. These are not transactional, because somebody doesn't say, oh my God, in the middle of the night I have to have my landscape design done tomorrow, right? So they're actually planning that in advance. So they're going to actually do a little bit more research. There's going to be a searcher life cycle involved where they're going to find you, and they're going to select based upon how much they've seen you and how good your stuff is as opposed to somebody else's. A plumber,
and there's probably something like a Great Landscapes magazine or something that some people get. So there's websites that pump out stuff like that. So you can find these people out there that are talking about this stuff. And a really cool thing to do is kind of link baity and make money content. Maybe you want some kind of affiliate tie-in to somebody that's generating leads for landscapers. But you could actually do something where it's like, here's about what this would cost to do. And things like that. And I don't even know if that's practical. I have no idea if the amount of dirt you have or what kind of rocks are there or the sun or anything else matters that much in it. But certainly talking about, what did they do? What kind of stuff did they use? That's good stuff that the people are super geeked about it. And those are the people you really want talking about you will eat up. So that's sort of a peer bridge and sort of going after, likely not just your local market, the people that are interested. Right. I mean, it's really hard to target only the people in your town with the internet because it goes everywhere.
It's kind of bigger.
But yeah, that's okay, right? Because with a local business, you don't need 1 million links to outrank the other guy who's got a GoDaddy website. So yeah.
And all of these lend themselves to what we were referring to earlier as porn, right? So if there's car porn, there's landscape porn, there's kitchen porn. It's about the pretty pictures and the comments about them. It's like, oh, now here's a cool landscape, and now what was done here, and this would work best in a more arid area than we have here, or this is obviously going to take a lot of sprinkler, and so you may not want to do that, but you can do something similar or on a smaller scale. Those kinds of things.
In Arizona, I'd replace this plant with that plant.
Yeah, and it doesn't require very much. Yep, it doesn't require very much commentary on something like that, and as you pointed out, Dan, stuff like this would lend itself extraordinarily well to Pinterest, which is almost like, I guess, the graphical analog of Twitter at this point, yeah?
Yeah, it's actually the number one seller of women's porn.
Okay, great. All right, good.
It's all pictures of doilies and cupcakes, and I just made all the women really mad. I'm joking.
Yeah, totally.
My wife
isn't
kidding me over that, and it's not because she agrees with that, but yeah. I should only joke with her and not with our audience.
There we go. Okay. So kitchen renovations, custom joinery, the same kind of thing. You could actually talk directly just about what you do by showing, what are the things, showing stuff and commenting on it.
The thing is, that's also really good content when somebody does find your website, when they search for, Canberra kitchen remodelers, and you've got all these pictures of all these beautiful kitchens. You might also have pictures of beautiful kitchens that you've done, but the thing is, you're giving them ideas. And the more ideas they have, as any remodeler knows, the more ideas your customer has, the more expensive the job gets.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Moving on. So leather belts, okay. I can get sales from... And I understand how to do the marketing. Oh, well.
Yeah, Ronald's selling, Western tack and stuff like that. That's, rodeo and horse people are an audience that you can get to online. And, again, there's people pumping out the content around that stuff. All you got to do is find out who's talking about that stuff and talk about the same stuff.
Yeah. I think this is one where there's lots of pictures available too. But there's so many items in this. So many items in this category. It's hard to know exactly where to start. But who's he selling it? Is it really all Western? Yeah, it says. Yeah. Okay.
You pretty much wouldn't wear it if you weren't trying to look like a cowboy.
Yeah. Well, okay. I have some of that stuff in my closet, but yeah.
Well, you're probably secretly a cowboy.
Yeah, I am secretly. Yeah, but okay. So, building industry. For him, the tacit knowledge of working with builders and. Oh, I see. Okay.
So this might actually be they're kind of in the early stages of exploring a business and a market, and so what are we after? It's probably more along the lines of either how do I save money building a home, which might follow the Flip These House guys, right? Stock that TV show, stuff like that, or I'm not sure exactly what their play is in terms of infill product, but it's figure out what your value proposition would be to who, and then you work back from that to what would they be interested in. And then it is relatively cheap to build an audience, and then do surveys and polling and talk to people about this idea or that idea, and see if anybody wants it. I mean, that's how I ended up being involved with SEO, other than it's something I did. I had a broader list around direct marketing, bringing direct marketing to the internet, because I happen to know a bunch of direct marketing people. And so I did a survey thinking that they were all going to want to buy the email marketing book that I had almost written. And like 80% of them came back and said, no, do something about SEO. So, okay, whatever, fine. I'll do that. And I got stuck with it. Someday I'll get to talk about email marketing again, though. Send your customers real quick email. You'll sell more stuff. There,
this was, and there's an example of this. I'm not suggesting that this is the place to go, but here's an example of kind of a process. And there's a person I knew many years ago who was a contractor, and he couldn't work anymore because it was beating his body to pulp. And so what he did, though, was he built a book and a set of seminars he did called The Owner Builder Home or something like that. I can't remember, where he actually walked people through the process of here's what to look for in actually either doing the general contract work yourself or hiring a general contractor or whatever. So he gave these, I forget how many week seminars, once a week for like 6 weeks or whatever. And that's what he did. He basically taught what he knew about the industry to people who were interested in building your own home. So that's an area where you can think of, well, this is what I know. How do I find some other way to monetize that? So that's something to think about.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of dream home porn and home design and plan porn and all kinds of stuff like that you can tap into also.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one because I actually have a reasonably good idea on this one.
Oh, wow, good. Well, heat packs. All right.
So his problem is, they're selling heat packs, and they do have a problem. I wouldn't have thought of this as a seasonal business, but apparently it is. That there's a lot of sales during the Christmas holiday, and I guess it's Uncle Bob has a bad back, so we're going to buy him something for his back. And so, what are you going to do the rest of the time? And I think one really good topic and I actually took a few minutes today to even look, is there stuff out there that you could use in terms of other people's content, and there's tons of it. But and I really couldn't find anybody sort of filling the niche of kind of the athletic trainer stuff. So it's just the time you need a heat pack is when you've got some kind of an injury, and athletic injuries and that kind of stuff far outnumber work injuries where you can get somebody else to pay for the health care, and your lawyer will encourage you. If we go back to the personal injury claim people, your lawyer will encourage you to go to the emergency room right now. Well, it only, my knee is slightly sore. Well, I don't care. It got sore while you were in Walmart, so darn it, you're going to want a settlement. Yeah. But for everybody that's done it to themselves, and I'm one of those people that does it to myself, if it's something that happens to you all the time, you've probably already found something that sort of works for you. But there's always all these kids out there that are involved in athletics, they're tweaking their shoulder, their elbow, or whatever, and people are looking for answers. And but you can also find those people because they're interested in other topics around athletics and stuff like that. It might be particular sports, or whatever. But there's definitely people out there that are listening, and so that means that there's also people out there talking about it and sharing that kind of stuff. And there's probably a pretty substantial community among just it has to be more than 10,000 athletic trainers just in the state of Texas. So and all the therapists, all the other people. There's audiences out there for sure.
Yeah, I wonder about the boomer on the golf course on the weekend too, that doesn't practice the rest of the week and goes out on the weekend and tries to show off. I'm suspicious that there are a lot of those people with sprains and strains.
You might go with us talk about golf.
Yeah, exactly.
How to improve your backswing. How you improve your backswing? Here's how to make your back feel better.
Feel better. Okay. Let's see. From David, we have Halloween costumes, props, and high-pressure misting systems. Okay. Props. I guess it means props. I'm not sure what props. I mean like Hollywood props, I guess, huh?
Movie props? I don't know.
Props, I guess, yeah. Not propellers on airplanes, I assume, but...
Yeah, I mean, the Halloween costumes thing is a tough one because you're only trying to sell stuff once a year, but there's always Halloween costumes around whatever movies and stuff like that, and so just talking to the people that are interested in those things and sort of being especially all covering all of the early buzz before the superhero movie comes out, and oh gosh, so and so is going to be Batman now. Oh gosh, Meg Ryan's going to play Batman. That's so awesome.
That would be kind of
I
cool.
don't Yeah.
Yeah.
Either her or Tom Hanks one would
Yeah.
probably be really.
Yeah.
But let's see. But and so that's something you could talk about. And again, we don't know your customers as well as you do. I don't even know who buys those stuff. Because we always get ours at the drugstore the day before, the day of. But props you might
Yeah.
talk about what probably industry buzz would be at least something where you could get build an audience and have people talking, and just subscribe to Variety and all of the sort of spin-offs and just talk about that stuff. Who's making what movie and what's happening? There's a whole lot of people that are interested in talking about that stuff, and yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, that's the thing. Is like, who are those props for? I guess we'd have to understand who the demographic is. And even on Halloween costumes, there are distinct demographics there. Are we talking about kids? Are we talking about adults? Very, very different, needs, wants, and desires there.
Yeah, are you making your own? We don't really know. And high pressure misting systems, I have no idea who they're selling to, but
I'm not sure what it is, unless we're talking about like disco things, or are we talking about pressure washing?
It might be a B2B thing. It might be the stuff that they got in the grocery store that like sprays in your face as soon as you try to grab a head of lettuce. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. But I mean, the general rule here is we have to figure out a pattern is. You have to figure out who you're selling to, what their other interests are, those kinds of things in order to figure out where to go for content.
Yeah, well, from there it's pretty much cha-ching. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Or at least we know what we have a set of options to choose from, and then we can kind of do the math to evaluate them. Anyway, okay, let's keep rolling here.
More hotels, regional travel sites, everything having travel related. I mean, there's more content you could possibly ever use, and you have some choices about which well you want to dip into. You can either go into the travel aspect, or you can go into sort of more of a demographic aspect. Are you focused on families? Are you focused on business travelers? You want to develop both of those at the same time or sequentially. Any of those work.
If you're a romantical bed and breakfast, then you can just talk about romantical stuff, and it makes perfect sense that the owner of the bed and breakfast would be interested in romantical stuff. That's why they started the bed and breakfast. POS systems, restaurants, and retail store merchants. This is still more or less the business kind of topics, although there might be some B2B play there, some of the demographic bridging and trade show stuff that you can do. I don't really know that industry very well, other than there's a restaurant here that I really like.
Other than that, yeah, you're a consumer, right?
There's a great sushi place just right up the road.
Yeah, and I would worry that this particular case that the actual ultimate end users of those systems may or may not be the people actually recommending them. So you may actually have a B2B kind of a thing going on if you're the manufacturer of those systems as opposed to the dealers. So depending upon where you are in that food chain, because the person who's running, owning and running a restaurant has like zero, actually probably minus hours in the day to think about the POS system.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are people. The people that are selling stuff to restaurants, there's lots of things that get sold to restaurants, but the guy that sells grill hoods is also in a position to make referrals and help with recommendations on a POS system.
Yep.
And I don't want to spoil anybody's party here, but I know people that do really well from those kind of recommendations. So somebody else actually sells, and it's not about restaurants, it's about a different market, but they're working on building relationships with the sales reps for people that sell to the same market, but don't directly compete with them, and they actually give them essentially a sales commission so that they can bundle their stuff in with the other contract. Everybody makes money. But that's one where, depending on what the play is and who we're talking about, it's more of a demographic and peer bridge than it is a topic bridge there.
Right.
Dentists, Leslie.
Dentist is a huge market, and again, it sort of depends upon your practice focus. Are you primarily a kids dentist? Or are you primarily talking about adults? Or are you doing high-end stuff like cosmetic? And I would, if you're doing all of those, then great, good for you. Although I got to tell you, niche is the new big, so you might want to actually think about focusing or niching what you do, or at least what you focus on. But there's within each of those, there's things that you can absolutely talk about, and there's lots of material written about it you can abstract. And so just from an abstracting perspective, you can follow what's going on in the industries, in regulation, and healthcare, all of that stuff. And then, in addition to that, focus on your particular demographic. So if it's about kids, what happens to kids at various stages of their life, how things can be dental related without you even understanding that, and so you can become a good recommender or a good trusted resource. I mean, even during the
dealing with kids, it's just anything about healthy kids.
Yeah, I mean, even during bear in mind,
them right, get them to exercise, like any of that kind of stuff is good stuff that makes sense to talk about, and because you care about kids. If it's cosmetic dentistry, that's a whole different thing. And I don't know if there's any celebrity buzz about did so and so get new teeth. I think it's more about faces and noses and breasts and stuff like that. But
yeah, but I mean, it's all about looking good, right? And so there's a whole message there about not growing old. And if you're talking to boomers are the biggest market, the most well-funded and largest market in the history of mankind. And so, hey, not bad place to focus. But bear in mind that we live in a society where there's actually a morning talk show for it's an hour and a half or 2 hours long. It just happens to be on sometimes when I'm going to to get my hair done. Dudes named The Doctors. When I do get my hair done, I know it doesn't look like it, but you should see it if I didn't get it done. But anyway, so literally it's this show with these doctors, quote unquote doctor. I mean, they wear doctors' clothes, but they sure look like actors to me. But anyway, that's considered entertainment today is to understand all this cool stuff, right? Okay. Well, then piggyback on that. Absolutely. Sometimes they even talk about teeth. They're that kind of doctor too, I guess. And that kind of segues into the elective medical stuff. There's huge amounts of written about this. I mean, if you go look at the number of procedures that have been invented just in our short lifetime, right, that is more medical knowledge and medical investment than the history of mankind. And so there's lots and lots of material there, and it's at an accelerating pace. So you'll never run out of stuff to write about, people doing it, why they're doing it, etc. It's an infinite well. Party rentals. Didn't we ever do this one? Or kind of?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then highly competitive market. Highly competitive market for a moving company. Okay.
I guess there are a lot of movers in Seattle.
Could be. People moving around in Seattle trying to escape the rain. Yeah.
I had to move to Seattle. I couldn't get anybody to call me back, but thankfully that's changed, both other than for David or his client.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of local stuff you can talk about there that probably does the job, and local events and things like that. Plenty of stuff that you can do locally.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So T-shirts.
And you're probably targeting a younger crowd for the most part because they move more often.
That's true.
But I don't know. Again, I don't know your customers as well as you do. But okay. So T-shirts, anti-presidential T-shirts. Just find the people that are, saying birth certificate on Twitter or flip-flop on Twitter and weed out the ones that are talking about something else, and there's your audience. It's just you're spewing propaganda, so do that on Twitter too. Anti-banker T-shirts, same thing, although does anybody not like bankers?
I think bankers. Bankers don't like each other, so yeah, I guess that includes them too.
Yeah, so not a peer bridge, but again, it's just find all the propaganda sources that align somebody with wearing that T-shirt, and figure out who's retweeting their propaganda, and you win that one. Printed T-shirts.
Humor's a good one, a good source of content here too, right? I mean, every stand-up comic makes jokes about presidents, and at least half of them do bankers as well. So there's probably stuff that.
Oh yeah, there's an endless supply of YouTube videos that you can embed and talk about, and there's no shortage of content, especially when bankers are political now. So that's why people like bankers is because. That whole obsession thing. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Is that the rest? Oh, I guess we sell over 40 different categories.
Animal T-shirts.
Oh, I see. Well, of course somebody cares about your T-shirts because somebody buys that stuff. But yeah, what you have to do is define the demographics.
The animal lovers, the wildlife lovers, they're out there, and probably the wildlife people are probably a better demographic because you have to be wealthy to care about any animal. As much as some people do, but people that actually buy diamond jewelry for their poodles, for example. But what? The poodle does not know. You can got him cute zirconium. He's not going to be mad. Anyway, but the wildlife, the people that actually have time to really be passionate about environmental stuff and wildlife tend to either be extremely wealthy or dirt broke. But even the dirt broke like to wear T-shirts all the time. So
yeah, I think that's where you go to your interest area. Business. My market is leadership development, executives in large corporate sector. Yeah.
So again, this is somebody that's sharing more of the Harvard Business Review type of content, and just finding the people that are sharing that stuff with other people, because those are the people that are talking to the other people that are in that target. And yeah, I think I would. Some people down in the small entrepreneur are going to be reaching for that, possibly unwisely. Organizational theory is not all that important when you have yourself and two people, but some people think big and some people are trying to think forward. There's a lot of people in the startup world that could use some leadership development badly, because a lot of them fail for nothing other than
leadership. Lack of
programmers that don't know how to actually get more than themselves to do anything. But that one's one that's easy to identify. But the kind of stuff that they're interested in would be the kind of stuff that you're teaching and doing. And so it's that kind of content. And certainly mixing in, depending on what you do, reviews of executive MBA programs and things like that, or information about them, interviews with business thinking leaders and stuff like that. That kind of stuff is usually pretty easy to get at without spending any more than time. And it's all good content for that kind of a group.
And what we're talking with small content strategies is perfect, because you just think executive summary, right? I mean, if all you do is you become a clipping service for the kinds of things that your market is interested in, that's perfect for the executive audience.
So we got Brock, who sells personalized checks, business checks, things like that. For every kind of check printer and software that's out there, they've got everything. And awesome new website. And I've recently spoken to Brock about a number of topics and things like that. So let's hear your ideas, Wesley.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, checks are great, and checks absolutely have a place, but I would be more concerned about not how to engage your market, but how to actually grow it, or how large that market is going to be. I think absolutely Brock can continue to increase his share of that market, but I would be concerned that you're not actually just in an LP record pressing industry, which, without getting into
with personal checks, it's the market is extremely young people who just got a bank account, and so they celebrate by getting some kind of check with the picture of them banking or whatever the kids do these days, and your grandma.
Pretty much, and in between, we still use check. I mean, we use checks, in our business and personal life as well. But it's a very small, it's a relatively small market.
We use checks in our business, but most of us, it's only because there's some jerk that has no other way for us to pay them.
Exactly. So, how do you actually kind of break through that or become differentiated is the real, how do you differentiate? It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's more, it's pretty easy to talk to business owners and stuff like that. And that's, really in terms of, building an audience to be able to do link building, that's what they need to do here. They've got carte blanche with what they cover to talk about everything from personal finance to every aspect of business. Saving, keeping track of how much you spend in restaurants and all that fucking stuff that people do. There's no end to content there, and pretty much any of it will work. Edmund has a business that arranges business loans for businesses. So I would some kind of a broker thing.
Yep.
Again, who are you arranging loans for? Figure out what they want to talk about, and if you know more about your business than I do, figure out what's your best segment, and and figure out what they're interested in. Just having casual conversations with somebody after all the paperwork is signed is a great way to find out stuff about that too. Like what are they concerned about if it doesn't come up before business accounting software. If we haven't covered that already, we've come close enough.
That's right. It's kind of very similar to where Brock is in terms of what he needs to do topic-wise. Yeah. Yeah, and Edmund should be focusing probably on growth stage businesses and what their problems are.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so Joel is women's apparel, okay? There's lots to talk about, like what topics.
And so, Joel, first of all, if you have customers, you can kind of work back to what the customers you have now are talking about, what kind of stories they're sharing, and then grab whatever the sort of the biggest segment of group of topics that you can fit into one persona. That's what I would try to do. If not, it's just find something that women who buy clothes are interested in. Which I guess almost everybody buys clothes, but so don't do not a nudist topic.
But that really actually wouldn't work very well. And the other thing is there
are different styles, and you can't be everything to everybody. So there's probably something more specific that you could get to. But I think you've already got sort of the topics figured out, Joel. I think it's just a matter, you've got to execute it, and you've got to find the people that are sharing the stories that you're sharing, and you'll build an audience that way.
Yeah, because I think he's actually already said what he's doing here. He probably just needs to use our tactic as opposed to kind of think more strategic. It looks like he's already done that work.
He's going to know any more about his market and his customers for his specific business than we could ever do with Quirk here. So I think he's already.
Bill, well, we know Bill very well, and Bill's actually, frankly, has been knocking it out of the park in terms of abstracting and content. And he is a tough market in terms of credit cards. Not very. It's an interesting market, but it's also a very noisy market, a very competitive market. And
I searched for balance transfer credit card the other day, and there were more than 3 results that came up.
You think?
Can't do that for some reason. There must be money in it or something.
There must be money in it, yeah. And so this is a very good example for everyone else. I mean, Bill, we've talked at great length with Bill about this, and he's doing a great job of it for everybody else, right? Yeah, everything personal finance related, and he's identified the different selected demographics that are basically at various different stages of life and career, and about what kinds of things they're interested in, and he's doing more guest blogging than any one person could be expected to do. So hat tip to Bill there, but.
You're probably looking at more of the Suze Orman content, the person that tells you to put stuff on credit cards, than that guy that I hear on the radio every now and then that tells you to cut them all up. It's really hard to convince people that they want new ones if you're talking about cutting them up, but. And there is even room to actually do feature-length content about how to figure out how many to consolidate into which balance transfer deal and stuff like that. Once people are kind of at a later stage of making a decision, where you can actually prod them to a favorable decision, because they're going to get it from somebody. Might as well be you.
Might as well. Then Sharon, what is Sharon doing here? We're in a tool for digital product owners. Well, digital product owners. Okay, so this.
Yeah, it really depends on what the tool is, but
Yeah. But it sounds like we would be his market, right? I mean, if I'm reading this right.
Yeah. Well, if you're selling to the same people we are, then talk about the same stuff we do, and then just talk about whatever is actually relevant to your tool. So, if you're AWeber, then you talk about email marketing and subject lines and deliverability and stuff like that as feature content, but also talk about conversion and analytics and testing and how to get traffic and stuff like that in the stories that you share. But you don't actually have to create full-length content about SEO if you're doing an email marketing tool, for example. So,
Yeah. And you will never run out of content in this particular area, by the way.
No. Never run out of good talk about it. Picking the ones that are good is the hard part.
Yep, for sure. So let's see. Alternative government, that's a great idea. We should have one of those. Alternative education, or any at all. Let's see. Okay, all right, I'll stop. Oil painting, survival of secured solar panels. Oil paintings doesn't seem to fit those others. But anyway, those are all good topics. I'm not sure how you monetize alternative government unless that's like a nonprofit mission.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the purpose is that they're trying to accomplish here, but I think it's you talk about it, and whoever else is talking about it, you find out who's sharing their stuff. And with anything but oil paintings, I think you can work back to there, right? Who's buying survivalist gear? I think the survivalists.
Yeah, right. Probably the same people talking about alternative government, by the way. So that's a tie-in.
There's all kinds of stuff about that on the internet. I've got my own plan to retreat to a shack with shotguns when the zombie apocalypse starts. So I'm sympathetic to the idea that it might not last forever. Solar panels, there's screen angles there, but it really more depends on who's the audience that you're trying to reach and stuff like that. But oil paintings is one that's a little bit different.
And I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess here that this, is somebody who's actually an art lover or enthusiast, and so these are going to be typically high ticket items. So if they're interested at that level, these may actually be people who have ever bought, say, an issue of the Robb Report. And it may very well be that you can find those in terms of their other interests that they kind of go along with that because they're socioeconomic.
Well, the thing is, there are also going to be people talking about whoever the contemporary artists are. That there's got to be a couple working in oil, and so what online publications are talking about those things, who's dropping their name out there, and basically you're joining a conversation, you're talking about the same stuff everybody else is talking about, and from time to time you have your own content about it that is your feature length content, your link based stuff like that. Is oil painting dying? I don't know, but that might be something that actually be a worthwhile topic to address with a blog post, infographic, whatever. So there's undoubtedly plenty of topics to talk about that reach the people that are like even buying that stuff.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is that, and again, without knowing a lot about the demographic, I wonder if Twitter is the right platform. You may have to actually find the platform that's going to most engage the people you're talking to. So,
it does depend, but I know there's art snobs on Twitter.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. And I didn't even know that. I did not know you were an art snob.
New York art gallery showing, attending art snob people. Wine snobs, too, but boy, do they serve great wine when you come to dinner.
Oh, heck, okay. So, even more mix. We've got a lot of mix here. So event planner training for event planners. Got it. I finally parsed that. Got it. Event planner training. Wow, that is kind of interesting. Training for event planners. Okay, so you need to talk to people who are interested in doing event planning or talking about the things about events or how to plan events going on, and who is the market for this? That's interesting. This is it's almost a business opportunity.
I guess it's training for event planners. I don't know if they're going to be event planners or if they're already event planners.
Event planners, yeah. Maybe
that would matter significantly, but I think, in terms of building an audience and stuff like that, it's you can probably just talk to people that are already event planners. You can do a peer bridge on this and, gather those people together in a community where they can share their stories and tips with each other and, referrals to each other because nobody can be in two places at once. Our event planner is not going to be working on any other events while they're doing ours.
Yep.
Right. During that week, so you got to worry about if we have lights, but things like that. But I think that's probably something where a peer bridge probably works pretty well because those people are out there, and you can find them out there, find their websites, find them on Twitter, and probably pretty easy to chat them up, and you really just need content about event planning to make it interesting to them.
And you could talk about events, about what worked, what not, little tips. This would be really.
Yeah, you could do the sort of the post-mortem analysis.
Twitter tips. Twitter tips, for event planning, right? You could just start an entire stream of Twitter content that event planners would follow, particularly if you threw in the occasional humor or, oops, that was a bad idea kind of thing.
Yeah, especially around big events, because you'll find people complaining on Twitter about one dumb thing or another they did. I forget what big tech conference it was where they printed the first name in like 12-point type on the badges, and the
Yep.
last name like 8 inches high. So it's made an 8.1 inch high badge or whatever. But like, oh, hey, Brody,
Yeah.
Rahode,
Yeah.
Rohud.
Yeah, really
That's
smart.
how they say it. Leslie, did you call that badge?
Treadmill market. So here's I think we mean actually the market selling treadmill, not a market that feels like a treadmill. That was a little, inside joke there for you people who market.
Yeah, they're selling
So anyway,
treadmills.
So
Fitness win.
Yeah, fitness win. Yeah, exactly. Employment screening. This is kind of like the employee testing stuff. It might actually be the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much the same stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Barefoot running. Now this was huge. In fact, I am currently wearing my Vibram 5-finger shoes, quote unquote.
Yeah, this is our old friend, Mr. Steven Sashin, from the class of '06. So.
Oh, really? Wow. Cool.
And I think he's been at this the whole time. But yeah, this is one where I'd be trying to talk to the runners, so they're talking about running stuff. So this marathon, that 10K, most runners that are actually actively into it actually know who's favored in the Olympic marathon this year. So we're talking about that kind of stuff. But and then you're the one that's talking about your content on your site that you're driving people to. It's about barefoot running and the benefits of that, and how to do it right and stuff like that.
Because this is just an example of a broader category we talked about being any sport. There's huge amounts of information and content of a routine, newsworthy nature on any sport you go to.
And there aren't a ton. There aren't a billion barefoot runners, but as far as I can tell, there's more all the time, and I don't think there's any less runners than there ever were.
That's right.
There are more fat people, but not less people running. So.
Yeah, true. Lunch bags. Now this one's kind of interesting.
I'm trying to switch from a fat guy to a runner.
Yeah, well, but you know how to be a runner, as I recall, so that's good for you. Yeah. I guess Andrea intentionally left us the hardest one last, right? Lunch bags. Okay.
I'm guessing these aren't brown paper bags.
I guess so.
And if not, then we're talking to people that have kids of a certain age groups, and probably maybe I don't know. Maybe we're telling people to bring their office lunch to the office. I don't know, but if we're talking to parents, that's healthy eating because it's about food, and if we're talking to office worker drone people, then again it's same people that like Phil we have a case study with is talking about and he's trying to reach with his Break Pal thing. It's a little bit of fitness because he has things for people that are stuck at a desk all day, and how they can actually get some movement in, and it reminds them to do it. And it's cool. He's got like a little social network so people can kind of hold each other accountable. But we'll be hearing about that shortly. So.
I'm betting this is kids, and it's probably about making it fun. So instead of getting past the little brown bag, getting to something that actually maybe has artwork on it or something else. And so, and so if that's the case, then the place to kind of the bridge to there is other fun things to do with your kids, right? Dangle them, juggle them.
Well, and there's an endless supply of content out there being pumped out from all over the place on what to feed them. Mm-hmm. And there's people that are out there on the Twitters sharing that stuff. And so if you're talking about what to feed your kids, and you've got lots of friends that are interested in that. Right? The thing is, you don't have to talk about. Let's go ahead and just kind of put some final points on the content here.
Ending slide? We do have a thanks slide, and so okay.
So. You don't have to talk about everything that somebody who's following you is interested in. It's more important that they're interested in everything that you're saying, or at least most of what you're saying. So I will follow somebody that tells me how to train my cat because I've got a cat that I want to train. Okay. Me personally, I'm not only talking about cat training. Okay, but I'm interested in it. And so for you, if you're talking about cat training, that's good enough for me. In fact, if you were talking about, cat training and yoga and kung fu and action movies and had some weird obsession with Mel Gibson, I would probably unfollow you because there would be all this stuff that, okay, no, I'm not really interested in that. But only some of the people that are interested in following you are going to be sharing, but just start with the people that are sharing, because those are the ones that are going to help you get more people that are potentially only interested in just listening.
Indeed.
And they're all useful in their own way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because, I think you don't want to be all things to everybody. What you want to be is exactly what, that one thing that some segment of the population wants. And as long as you have that.
Or at least, within, right, where you can carve out a group of people that if I'm interested in SEO, I'm not going to mind hearing stuff about analytics. You know that because you know the market, you know the customers, you know the people. So if I'm trying to reach parents, they're interested in a lot of things because there's a lot of things that can break on a kid. I mean, and like you can't even get a warranty on the damn things, so you can't go back and get a new one. So whatever breaks, you got to fix.
Yeah, that's true.
You got to make sure you put the right kind of oil in. The cheap oil, you'll end up having problems later. Through a rod. It's like there's parts you can't even get replaced.
That's true. Most of them, actually. Yeah, most of them. Yeah. Let's see. Now, I wasn't. Is Andrea farming questions for us, or we actually at this point we've been in it 2 hours?
I believe that Andrea is not farming questions, but if we haven't gotten everybody a better sense of how to find a topic for their market by the end of this, I don't know what else we can do other than doing individual consultations with everyone. And,
which is what we actually have done on a variety of occasions. Yeah.
We do sell those, but it's actually buying Link Liberation would be cheaper and better than hiring us to consult for most folks, because most folks are in a position where they can do this stuff in their business. They can, build a team of outsourcers or people that are in-house already to do the work. So, the stuff we're focusing on here is not. You don't have to invent a wheel. You don't have to build your own social network. You don't even have to get that much content created because most of it is based on recognizing what people are already interested in and other people are doing and using that and leveraging that. So the amount of investment that has to go into, Michael, who we'll have in the case study again, if you're watching the replay, it'll be right above, and otherwise it'll be on Monday if you're live. Michael is spending, what did you tell you, Leslie, about $1,000 a month creating content?
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, and he's only $100 or $200 short in terms of his AdSense to completely recoup that cost.
Yeah, so all they can do is really just do a little bit better ad placement on there, and they're already at break even on that. And just looking at the last 30 days, there's $3,600 in referral sales from the content that they create, and they do. The bare minimum. Leslie, when I showed you how you actually go in one of their content sites and get to their e-commerce store, I think you were as shocked as I was the first time I saw it. They're not pushing it hard. And they're doing that for a reason, because their audience is still growing by leaps and bounds. And so, right, they don't want to plant a giant ad for their store until, one, they've done everything they can to build the audience and established a strong relationship. People are much more tolerant of an advertisement on the website when they've known you for a long time than, like, you just got there and is littered with ads. So they're not trying to make their info sites look like NASCAR racers or NASCAR drivers even, because they put stuff all over the coats. And they certainly can and eventually will monetize even more, but they're making a good profit on link building alone, and the long-term value of that audience and everything, the mailing list that they're building, I would project 8-9 months before email is better than Google ever could be for them. And they haven't even touched affiliate marketing. There's so many places they haven't gone in terms of growing their business, but they're building such a strong foundation. They're building it with very simple content, stuff that is highly leveraged based on what other people are doing. In fact, they've got actually, on one of their sites, they've got people basically lining up to give them content for free. And so, this stuff works, but maybe we should stop ranting about it too much, because we'll be talking about it some more in the case studies on Monday.
Indeed.
And we will, of course, providing more education at the same time about other ways to leverage off of the stories that you're sharing and help you rank better and get more traffic. And some case studies on how people are doing exactly that. So I'll just say thanks, because it says thanks on the slide. So
we
say don't lose your PowerPoint, but I'm just going to say thanks.
Thanks. Okay.
And thanks everybody who hung in. That's amazing for all of you that actually hung in as long as we did here. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye now.